So with the cognitive functions, you can see that it's not about what you are. You're not assigning your identity to being introverted or being extroverted. You are just using these cognitive functions. And when you're using these functions, that's the behavior that's coming out. Hello and welcome back to Personality Solutions. If you're new here, my name is Robin and I'm a personality coach. I help you find your functions so you can have a more fulfilling life, career, and have better relationships. Today I will be making just a quick video on why you probably have the wrong idea about Myers-Briggs and what it really is. Hint, the key lies in the function stacks, not in the 8 letters. No matter where you first heard of it, whether it was at the company that was hiring you, a link your friend sent you about a personality test that was scarily accurate, you've probably at some point in your life been roped into taking the MBTI test online. But if it's just that online self-assessment tool test that you took, you might want to rethink what you know about the true complexity of this theory. And the quickest way to rethink this is to forget those 8 letters completely and just remember the functions. And what I mean by forget those 8 letters, I mean I versus E, N versus S, T versus F, J versus P. Forget those and replace them with the 8 cognitive functions. N-E and N-I, S-E and S-I, T-E and T-I, F-E and F-I. This is because websites like the 16 Personalities only present to you the surface level of the theory. In fact, it's not even the Myers-Briggs at all. It's actually a mix of 2 totally separate theories. It's a mix of Myers-Briggs and the Big 5 trait model. It's called the NARIS model. And if you check that 16 Personalities website, you could see information about their custom NARIS model on there. But the NARIS model is actually much different from the Myers-Briggs. I will go more into that in a future video, but for now, I'm going to be talking about Myers-Briggs and the cognitive functions that actually make up the base of the true Myers-Briggs theory. The true Myers-Briggs is not represented on a traits-based scale like the NARIS model is. It's not about where you lie on the spectrum of being introverted or extroverted, or thinking or feeling. Again, it's about the cognitive functions, which I will go into in just a second. When you dive deeper into the base mechanics of this theory, you quickly realize that it's about much more than just whether you lean more towards being an introvert or an extrovert, or whether you lean more towards being intuitive versus sensing. Because the reality is that everyone has everything. Everyone can do everything. And so it's not about whether you're more of this or more of that. It's truly about what functions you're using and whether that function you're using is introverted or extroverted. It's also about how those functions that you're using work together in different ways, how they interact with each other. So the reason I want you to forget about those letters on their own is because people don't work like that. People don't operate on isolated letters that don't interact, essentially. The truth is that everything is connected, and that includes behavior. And that's also reflected in the cognitive functions. To view this in a different light, think about the grammatical form of a verb. An isolated infinitive verb, such as to like, or even just like. I know you're probably wondering what grammar has to do with all this, but just bear with me. The word like contains some information about the meaning or the semantics of the word like. But since it's not conjugated, it doesn't contain any information about its place in a sentence, among other elements. Once you add endings or affixes to a verb, it gives you more information about how it interacts with other elements in a sentence, like the subject or object. It gives you context for how that verb is used in that sentence. For example, she liked him, I like her, etc. So a verb is not really an isolated element. It interacts with other words to form a sentence, and grammatical elements in the form of affixes work together to show that interaction. This is the same for the 8 letters of the MBTI. Those isolated letters give us some information about the meaning of the letter, but they are just like a verb's infinitive form. The cognitive functions are like a conjugated verb. They hold information about interacting elements. What information do they hold? Well, let's break it down. So it starts with the 4 middle letters: N, S, T, and F. These letters are like the unconjugated infinitive forms of the theory, the bare bones base. These 4 letters can then be split into 2 categories, which are the ones that make up the J and the P part of each type. N and S are perceiving functions. T and F are judging or decision-making functions. Finally, you add a small I or a small e to show or indicate that function is introverted or it's extroverted. Then you have the 8 cognitive functions. So with the cognitive functions, you can see that it's not about what you are. You're not assigning your identity to being introverted or being extroverted. You are just using these cognitive functions. And when you're using these functions, that's the behavior that's coming out. So you're not an identity of that cognitive function, if you get what I'm saying. You may be more introverted because you use an introverted function more than you use an extroverted function. Or you may be more extroverted because you use your extroverted functions more than you use your introverted functions. You often hear people say, oh, I'm an ambivert, or oh, sometimes I'm introverted, sometimes I'm extroverted. It's contextually based. And that's because you're using those functions in different contexts. So you might be introverted in one setting or in one environment and extroverted in another. For example, if we look at extroverted feeling versus introverted feeling, FE versus FI. If that's your first function that you use the most, are you making decisions based on what other people are valuing in the external world? Or are you making decisions based on what you're personally valuing internally? So the result is that each function already has a judging versus perceiving and an introverted versus extroverted element already built into it. Each function holds all the information for you to figure out what these interacting elements are, the true interacting elements. So again, if you're going to be labeled as an introvert or an extrovert, it actually is about what functions you're using the most. Are you using your introverted functions the most? Or are you using your extroverted functions most of the time? So I've shown how the functions contain a lot more information than just the individual letters. In the next video, I'm going to be showing how different functions interact with each other. I'm also going to be going into what each function actually means. If you're interested in that video, hit the subscribe and bell button below to be notified when that comes out. If you found value in this video, hit that like button below, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.